with the steak, but add a steak. Figuring steak and steak trumps ribs and steak. But does it?
2 meats, 2 sides, $14.99. Get it here or get it to go.
James Thomas Morning Blend. I have today Vladimir Monroe. How you doing?
I'm doing well, about so.
Good. And you're with the St. Louis Development Corporation.
Yes, sir. St. Louis SLDC.
Tell us your role.
So I am the contract compliance manager, and what that entails is the city has an ordinance that states all the construction projects and professional services contracts, 25% of those, since they receive city incentive, have to be funded by, or has to have minority participation up to 25%, or minimum 25%. And then women-owned businesses, the spend on that should be 5% on all construction related.
Not fair to the women, man.
Well, unfortunately, that's what the ordinance states, and that's what they figured out was the available demographic of certified women-owned businesses in the city of St. Louis.
I got you. So what are some of the projects St. Louis Development Corporation's got going on? I know there's NGAs involved.
Correct.
Also, is there Greenway? What's it called?
Great Rivers Greenway?
Great Rivers Greenway.
Great Rivers Greenway. So that's a project that is sort of going to funnel a lot of the area into the arch grounds. So you're going to have Keener Plaza, Cortex is all sort of going to be a funnel into the Archway ground. So that's going to be the sort of the focal point of the city. But we've got Ballpark Village, which is going on. We've got a few other projects. Jefferson Arms is proposed to come. BJC is spending some money here in the city. They're doing a hospital as well. And then we also have the plethora of projects that are going on in Cortex area as well. So it's a lot.
Now, a lot of stuff's going on in St. Louis. So would you say that's great for St. Louis, especially job-wise?
It's phenomenal for St. Louis. So St. Louis, the job growth is higher than what the national average is. I believe St. Louis is about, or construction average, I believe St. Louis is about 8%, and I think the rest of the United States is about 4 to 5%. So this explosion is going to help generate a lot of different types of income for the city of St. Louis, as well as create some permanent jobs in the background of the residual effect as well.
When you're bringing that up, I got a question for you on that, because I've been to a couple of meetings off of Shoto, in the hall there, and one of the things they've talked about is there's a shortage of electricians, plumbing, so in construction, all that counts. So there's carpenters, there's a shortage of skill.
Correct.
So how are we going to, or how is the city planning to get some of those jobs, individuals trained, and then get them jobs, get them working? Yeah, permanently.
So it has to be a multifaceted approach, right? So across the board, there's a loss of the intrinsic skilled labor that we currently have in most industries, right? So even in the engineering field, you're getting engineers who are typically older and they're retiring, and there isn't a lot of people coming up behind them. So now they're experiencing that in construction trades. So one of the things that they've been trying to do is become far more inclusive of people to get them to come into that. They're also doing better outreach and explaining to them exactly what this entails. And truth be told, some individuals will not have the capacity to go to college. But that does not necessarily mean that you can be just cast aside and not a productive member of society. So we have these skilled labor positions that, as you mentioned, they're not being filled. So if we can sort of find and identify individuals who may not necessarily be college level material at this point, but explain to them that there's an opportunity for you where you can still become productive, you learn this craft, learn this trade, and then you too can branch out and become an entrepreneur. I think if we can spin it in that way, I think we'll get far more people to get engaged and then get involved in some of the skilled labor.
So we need a couple more rankings out there.
We do need a lot more rankings.
A lot more rankings out there.
We need to identify individuals who would be ranking worthy, as opposed to other individuals who are going to Harvard and Wash U.
You know, it's interesting, they say the population or the joblessness in St. Louis, the rate is at a particular rate. But we all know that when you start talking about economically depressed areas, we're talking about North St. Louis, it's either double or triple. So how is there a way to reach out to that area to see if there's individuals that can be trained and
Certainly. So one of the things that we have is called the Promise Zone, and then we also have sort of Section 3 is what I believe. Section 3. So with Section 3, what they're looking for are individuals who work live in the same community who want to also work on these construction projects. So that's a classic example of individuals who get up, work, learn, earn, and then go back home and stay in the exact same community. And there's a push to get a lot of individuals to get Section 3 certified, because that means now you're intrinsically woven in this community and you're tied to also trying to develop it yourself.
So do you have the information with you on where people can go to get that information?
Certainly. It's CDA. If you go to St. Louis.sldc, I believe it's .com, you can find that information on our website.
And how is the word getting out to that community?
This media is one. On our website is another, SLDC. The city does a good job of that. Anytime that we go out and we have to speak publicly about events, we try to pub this as best we can and as much as we can to let people know that there are opportunities in here in St. Louis. We just have to be ready to take advantage of them.
So it sounds like there's a huge opportunity. It's going to be a couple of years, though, and we're talking about the NGA project in North St. Louis.
Correct. So the NGA project is going to, so a couple phases, right? So the first phase is what we're doing right now, which is essentially turning what used to be the north side of Minneapolis, these 99 square acres, into basically this table, right? So they've removed a lot of the buildings, a lot of the infrastructure, they've cleared the land, and they're going to make it flat, and they're going to turn that over to NGA. So once it gets turned over to NGA, now it becomes a federally regulated project. So at that point, it's no longer a municipal project with an MWBE requirement. Now it becomes a DBE requirement. So we're pushing for, we're trying to figure out how we can carve out some participation from the local community to get involved in this federally funded project and what that's going to look like going forward. So obviously, we want to advocate for as many participants as we can from the local area. Part of the reason we were able to get the NGA here is because the senator and the labor unions came together and said, there's a need for this here, and we're willing to support you as best we can. So one of the things that we need to do as a community is start holding them accountable for that level of support. And that comes in the creation of jobs and their level of involvement in making a strategic push to get more people involved in the skills and then open up some of the hiring halls to address this dearth, because in 5 or 10 years from now, when that community is gone, then who are you going to get to be the skilled laborer in your home or your remodel, right? You don't want somebody like me coming in here trying to put up support beams in your home.
No, or me either.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then my producer Denise doesn't want to do it either.
Correct.
And our next guest won't want to do it either. But we won't mention any names.
Awesome.
Vladimir, one more time,
Yes,
where
sir.
can our audience go to get more information?
SLDC's website, or they can email me, Monroe, M-O-N-R-O-E, the letter V, at St. Louis, and that's STLOUIS-MO.gov.
Vladimir Monroe,
Yes.
thank you for watching Morning Blend St. Louis. We'll be right back.